Welcome back to Distanced here on YouTube. My name is Tom and I am delighted to be joined today by our writer and director and our cameraman and editor. It's Mark Goldthorp and Bourne here. We're going to be having a chat all about distance scenes. But before we do, don't forget to give a big thumbs up and a like to this video. And please subscribe to the channel and check out the whole of Series 1. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
All good.
Very good.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for joining us. It's been about a week or so since the final episode of Series 1 of Distance has filmed.
Yeah.
Let's just go straight in with, how did it go? How did you feel the whole thing went?
Shall I start, Al? I probably have a...
Yeah, go on, Mark. Far away.
Do you know what? It's been one of the best things I think I've ever been involved in. It's been such a joy reconnecting back with Al. We've made our first film together 18 years ago, something like that, I think it was on mini DV. You'll be able to tell me technically what it was on. And that was called No One Forgets a Bad Teacher. And obviously we went into lockdown, just to give, the people watching some context. We went into lockdown and I thought, I wanted to do something. And I was teaching on a course and was doing some script work classes, and I thought, what kind of script should I do? And I thought I might write some Zoom scripts, and they kind of came out quite well. And that was what was the beginning of Distanced. And then I approached Al and said, look, I've got this idea, but Al being Al, he obviously makes it look just that bit more fabulous. Because I thought early doors, it could just be done on Zoom, that we could just record it like we're recording it now, which actually, the first scenes when I did them as part of this course, we did that and it worked really, really well. But that's something we do want to talk about, is exactly how we did it, probably a bit later. I'll probably jump in the gun. But yeah, it's been amazing. We've done 6 scenes, the final one culminating in Lesley Joseph in a piece called Masking the Truth that went out last week. And I think it's had the biggest reaction of any of them, actually, just on views and the emotional impact of the mother-daughter scene. That's what it is. And it's a mother with early stage dementia. And it's just resonated with so many people. I've had so many amazing messages. I know, obviously, we've worked together on this, all 3 of us. And some of the messages that have come from people I don't know have been really quite emotional, to see how it's touched so many people and opened a few doors into their emotions that perhaps they have been kind of bottling up. So it's been crazy, actually, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where Masking the Truth might go in the future. Al, I'm going to hand over to you.
Well, yeah, as Mark said, we made our first film 18 years ago, and we have done other things, over the years, but it's difficult. We've both got families and it takes up a lot of your time, and we've always been working as well. Mark's in the West End at the moment, technically, and I should be on tour. But it was just great, when Mark said he's written these scenes, and I saw the ones done on Zoom, and it was like, how do we go about doing this? Was the first question. And I thought, because there have been other things on TV in a similar sort of style. And I was trying to think, how do they actually technically achieve this? But we kind of worked out a way of doing it, and it's just been great, because that's the thing. Mark is very creative, and I'm very technical, and that's where the 2 of us come together, and I'll solve issues, and he'll come up with some great ideas, and together
he's quite creative as well. He's quite creative.
I know, but I need inspiration. So you're my
yeah.
And then we got Tomo there. Just holding it all together for us.
You've obviously done all the trailers for us, put the piece together, put it out on social media, which has just been great. So that's a personal thank you from both of us.
Yeah. To you, Tom, it's been a really great project to do, and it's something that during this whole process of us being in lockdown, which is of course totally unprecedented, it's been something that's given me personally, and I know you guys as well, and a lot of people out there, a bit of passion for what we do again. If we jump back a little bit, let's discuss the lockdown. And these scenes are all set during what we now will call the first lockdown, because of course we are in the middle of lockdown 2.0 right now. But these were all set during the first lockdown. How did you guys sort of cope with that? And at what point was it that you sort of realized you needed this kind of creativity again in your lives after having it, not to put it too fine a point on it, kind of pulled away from you with the pandemic?
Well, I mean, last year, I was on tour for 11 months, and that's quite hard, when you got a wife and child, and I love being at home. So, but it's a great job, and I love the show I was doing, and that was all good. And so really, once we had this whole lockdown thing, initially I quite enjoyed it. In fact, I've enjoyed the whole thing, just to be forced to be at home. And I think a lot of actors have had the same sort of feeling, that you don't feel like, oh my God, I'm not working, because no one's working. So everyone's unemployed, everyone's in the same boat. And it kind of makes you just chillax a little bit and go, right, and some other sort of big editing projects came in for me. I did a big Bohemian Rhapsody thing with the We Will Rock You cast, and that took me about a month of stuck in here editing, and then that came up, then a few other things, and then just at the point when Mark was looking to do this, it just seemed like the perfect time. And I think we had slightly come out of the lockdown when we started to make these, so we were able to go to people's houses and and film a few things, and it wasn't like strict like it is again now.
I think right at the beginning, I think the very first, the first ones that we put out there was a big template on technically how you can film this, and I think that's something that a lot of people are quite interested in. So for the viewers, obviously, all of these pieces pretty much are in a Zoom 2-shot. But we also want to be able to get in and get some emotion. So obviously, I talked to Al about this. And Al came up with the idea, probably looking a little bit at stage to see what we kind of thought that how they did stage the David Tennant piece. And the best course of action was to play the whole scene directly to your own camera and film it in the 4K, is the buzzword of this year for me. Change the settings on your iPhone and film in 4K, high resolution. So you're getting the best possible image alongside a pretty decent sound, the sound coming from the iPhones. But obviously, when you are dealing with actors, that's not something they're used to doing. And I think that's one of the things from lockdown that has been brilliant for me personally, but I know loads of others, is getting equipment together like mics and doing voiceovers from home and making a booth and having a bit more technical knowledge. I know Alex will concur there than I had before. I'm even able to say the word 4K and actually know what it means. But that side of things, as we started filming those, we were asking the actors to film themselves and then send the files to Al for Al to then begin the edit.
It's a whole Dropbox WeTransfer nightmare.
And anyone out there, they will know when they're big file sizes because they're 4K. People didn't have enough room on their phones, were losing some of the footage, would have a fan on,
lighting. It was about 35 degrees in the day, wasn't it? So people had fans on and forgot to turn the fans off. So we had to remove all that sort of extra noise from the audio.
Yeah. It was just little things like even like fridge noises and things like that you just, obviously when you've got, sound stages to film in, you don't ever worry about those things. But there's an authenticity to it as well. So sometimes actually what Al's able to do is, unbelievably, is to be able to take some of that sound out, but then it doesn't sound real. So he has to put the sound back in, which is the stuff I think that people don't realize about the Foley and and just the extra work that Al does in the background to make the piece come alive. And obviously early doors, people were filming on their phones, sending us the footage. Al was editing, we were directing, we were doing script sessions with them, usually 2, because often I wasn't able to be there on the day of the shoot. Some of them I was there, but I didn't want to be in the background going, excuse me, because what we wanted was that intimacy of a real Zoom experience. And obviously we just got better at it, and we got better at knowing this is the best way to do it. And by the end with masking, because we were out of lockdown, Al was able to go with a mask to Lesley's house. I was able to film Kirsty Hoiles, well, she's my wife, so she was able to film her at my house, and just be able to monitor things on sound and actually be there to direct it. But it does come with some difficulties, but I think we've overcome them, and the end result, I think we're thrilled with it, really.
I think there's 2 of them, No Illusions and Headspace, because they were younger people, younger actors, they were able to have an earpiece in, like you guys have got your AirPods in today. So it looks okay to have AirPods in. And that makes my life, you know, very easy then, because we're not getting any spill from, because just, you know, to finish off the how it's done. There's a Zoom, we set up a Zoom in the room, if you like, so the laptop is there and they can see each other on the Zoom, but then they have to play the whole thing down the lens of their phone, which is quite difficult. And sometimes I don't realize that. So a lot of the time, we had a couple of times where they had to reshoot things because they weren't playing it down the lens. And it's an awkward thing because you can't actually see the person. Like now we're on a Zoom and I can see you guys there and your eyes move about. But we decided that the best way for these to look is if you play it straight down the barrel. I mean, here's the interesting thing. I love this fact that I don't think it's been said enough. That thus far, Lesley, Joseph and Kirsty have never met. And no one believes it. When I say that, they perform this incredible scene, which has broken everyone's heart, and they have never met. So that's 2020 for you, isn't it?
How much of a challenge is that for you when you're piecing these scenes together? The fact that, you know, in some of them they're maybe not reacting live in the moment to what's happening. You know, they've all put brilliant performances in across all the 6 scenes. But how difficult is it for you, Al, to match up just those beats and those moments where usually you'd wait and respond to me, but they've kind of done it on their own, and you wouldn't know from watching it how brilliantly, seamlessly it is edited together. But how much of a challenge is that?
Well, I always like to have, really, whenever you see them together, they have done it. That is a take, you know, because they do maybe do 1 or 2 or 3 takes of the whole thing. And if they make a mistake, they can just stop, decide where to go back to and pick up. But
not stop filming.
Stop filming, you know, keep the thing going, and then plow on through until they're happy with it. And then if they fancy doing one more, they do one more. And we often just took the last take and it was fine. Sometimes if there was a bit of audio, there was a problem, or someone fluffed one word, or, you know, I was able to, you know, to take a take from another take, as it were, and put it in and, you know, and make it fit. You know, if we could take a better performance from another take, you can start to add in a bit here and there, but more often than not, it's just the 2 of them. That's what they did for that bit. But that's the thing. It's difficult when you can't see what you do. Like, for example, the first one we put out, Unsaid, Joseph Millson and Sarah Jane Potts, they're married. So I went to their house and Joseph was up in the bedroom. I had a camera set up there, mic'd him up. Sarah Jane was downstairs and they, you know, they did the scene. But because the Zoom wasn't working very well, they just did it on a WhatsApp phone call. So they just had a phone on in the room very quietly in the background. So they couldn't even see each other at all. And if you watch that, and the way that they're such brilliant actors, and if you look at it and you're thinking, they're not reacting, but they must have, I imagine, you know, because they knew it very well. So they'd rehearsed, because they lived together, they obviously rehearsed it together. So they knew sort of what each other was going to do, I imagine, because then they could just imagine what the other person was doing, how they were.
That is the huge skill of this, because like as we're on this Zoom at the moment, I'm looking at Tom, I'm looking at Al. I'm very rarely speaking directly down the barrel of the gun, and I think that's what it was incredible to see, like Al says, with Unsaid, and all of them, to be honest, that they, you know, there are a few moments I think where we've kind of managed those things in the edit where perhaps, you know, and you can imagine it's so difficult to do that without looking into somebody's eyes and playing a scene like that, but not for a second. And, you know, I toyed with the idea of actually, how does it work if we look at each other on the screen? But we, as the audience, lose that connection. There's a big thing about singing, you know, various singing concerts and things I've seen online where some people have gone down the barrel of the gun, some people have done it like a self-tape. But for this, it just worked so much better that they spoke straight down the camera. And, you know, when you look at it on distance scenes on YouTube, you will see that's where it's most rewarding for us as an audience.
It definitely is. I think you, as you rightfully say, get that connection. One of the things that a lot of people have resonated with and had that connection with as an audience has been the writing and the situations that they themselves have perhaps, you know, seen in lockdown, have experienced themselves in lockdown and beyond, really, especially talking about masking the truth here in you know, that kind of battle with having an aging family member and dealing with all the things that come with that. How was the process for you writing it, Mark? Are they sort of semi-autobiographical? Have you drawn on your own kind of things for it? Or where did the inspiration for the ones that didn't come from?
It's great. Yeah, I mean, that's the question you always ask about how you get things to be truthful in writing. When I don't have a family member with dementia, but my next door neighbor has dementia. I know her son. You know, there are various people in my life that have gone through this struggle. And I think the one thing as a writer is you do bring an awful lot of yourself to all of the pieces. And something like personal things that have happened in your life, they just resonate that much more if they're authentic. And that can be down to, like, for instance, in Masking, there's a reference to somebody that mum fancies in that, and it's Robert Redford. Well, that comes directly from my mum. So there, you know, when my mum watches that, obviously makes her cry because of the reference point to Robert Redford. And there are a number of things that you draw on to, as I said before, to make it authentic. Some of those things you look at, like one of the pieces, No Illusion, is very close to my heart. No Illusions is close to my heart because it's about a magician. And, you know, I've been teaching magic online. I am a magician. And there's been a huge struggle this year for magicians. And I've actually kind of looked at that piece. It's probably the more comic of the six. But actually, there's actually quite a heartbreaking story there for any magician watching this, because it's been a terrible year. You know, if you're in lockdown, events have gone. How do you go into a close-up arena and do magic? And people, again, that's what's been amazing this year, is people have got to find ways. They're looking at completely different ways of doing magic online and entertaining people without saying, pick a card. Oh, no, you can't without gloves on. Do you know what I mean? So there's a number of pieces that I've drawn from my own experience, you know, but also I've imagined scenarios. One of the pieces, Starting Point, was the imagining of a Zoom date taking place, which is actually a personal favorite because of the isolation felt by so many people, and speaking to so many people about the loneliness that they felt, imagining that environment of the awkwardness of having what was meant to be a date in person on Zoom. Really, and that one's actually really resonated with a lot of people just because they've been through it. Maybe not the Zoom date, but they've certainly felt all the things that those two characters feel. And so I think that's where I've kind of drawn from them. Some of them were ideas perhaps that I had already and tried to bend them into this environment of Zoom. And actually, I realized that doesn't work. For most of them, they have to be written for this environment. So as I said, when I was teaching on that course, I'd written 3 of the scripts specifically for this fly on the wall environment. And it's just, yeah, I think there's an intimacy to them that I loved, where they're not forced. The acting isn't forced. It isn't telegraphed. It's not overplayed. But it's incredible how much energy, even in this environment, you have to put into the camera for things to read. And I think all of the actors have kind of learned that by watching it and trying takes and then watching them back and realizing, actually, maybe I could have gone further there. But it's, you know, an awful lot of them have come from, you know, things that have happened in my family, things that have happened in other people's families, and just trying to make them as real as possible, I think.
You've mentioned there about the actors, and the cast that we have for Distant Series 1 is just incredible. You know, we're talking about household names like Lesley Joseph and big stars of the West End, rising stars as well. How was it securing all of those people to be in Distanced? And then how was it for you guys working with them and getting to, you know, as you mentioned earlier, Al, film the right way in 4K and getting all of those little habits in so that everything's nice and consistent? How was that whole process of working with the actors for the first time in probably a few months?
Well, you know, these are, you know, Lesley's a household name, which is also a really dear friend of mine, which is why I was able to ask her if she would like to do it. And she said, send me the script. I was like, oh my God, brilliant. Sent her the script and she immediately loved it. You know, had a chat with Mark. They made a few little adjustments here and there. And again, Mark's in Mary Poppins at the moment with Amy Griffiths, who was in No Illusions, and Joseph Millson's playing Mr. Banks in Mary Poppins.
Jason.
Oh, and with Jason, of course.
Yeah.
So these are, at the moment, series one was calling in favors from friends, but they were just more, they were thrilled. They love the scripts, and they love the idea of it all, and they just were really, really excited to get on board and do whatever they needed, And I mean that was it. Apart from Unsaid and Masking the Truth, the other people did film themselves, and we just that's the interesting thing. When you get the Dropbox and it's there, you kind of you load it into Premiere Pro, and you sync up the two cameras, and you go, right, what have we got? Whereas when I was filming Unsaid, I filmed both cameras and was monitoring them the whole time, so I knew what we had. The same with Lesley and Kirsty, we knew. And Mark was obviously at the other end with Kirsty, so he could watch Lesley on the monitor and listen to Kirsty and give a few notes along the way and redo some bits here and there. But it was when we just get sent the footage and I see it all for the first time. But I guess now if we do series 2, I mean, lots of people have messaged us and want to do one. So
yeah, I think just to echo that, I think some of the things with the direction of this as a process, the script was sent out to actors that we wanted to do it, to see if they're interested. Some people weren't able to do it, were doing other things. And then if people liked it, we then would have a script session with them on Zoom. So the very first one was me actually seeing the two actors play it on Zoom, which was great and really revealing for me. And then I would go away, make script changes, look at various things, and come back and have another Zoom session. And then they would go off to film it. Because the issue I was having is because, of course, I never get to see really what it was like, because with the Zoom being open but out of the way, really, just to get the audio link and having their phone, I never was able to see quite what the performance was. I was only hearing it. So it's one of those weird things where, yes, if I could have been there monitoring, watching, like we did with Lesley, but of course we were in lockdown. And so there were various ones that perhaps, in the future with series 2, who knows, we might come out of lockdown. I think we would probably go to film both parties, wouldn't we, Al? I think that's probably the way we would, just for quality as well. Having mics on them as well would just be lovely. It's all of those things you want to elevate. Yeah, lighting it slightly more. I mean, it's again,
it was a choice you made, though, because I did say to you, why don't you just stay while they're filming, stay on the Zoom with your camera off and watch and at least listen to it. But you thought you didn't want to intrude. It's about those two people, and really you kind of do your 2 script sessions, your rehearsal, and then you kind of go, good luck, and off you go, and then you're leaving the actors to do whatever they want to do, and then you just get the footage.
I think that's a really important point Al's made, is that if you're on set and you're filming, and a load of these guys have done TV, you've got about 20 people watching you. What I wanted to do, and it's that intimacy thing again, is not have a director just in the background that you're worried about, or fluffing a line, or I was not as religious with the kind of paraphrasing either. I wasn't sort of going, oh, you missed a comma there. If there's one thing that I really liked, perhaps I would say it'd be great if you could do it. But it was a kind of a surprise when we got things back, and to kind of go, oh my God, that's great. That's come over much better than I could possibly ever have imagined.
I'm just thinking, I think woof woof, Mark, woof woof.
Woof woof, yeah, woof woof. Joe will watch this, I'm sure, at some point. Yeah, woof woof was not, there were certain lines that I thought actually I need to get rid of. But there's things that if I was to do it again, of course you get better as well, and so say, okay, I now know the process. We were going in blind. We didn't really know how to do this, and I know some people have gone, oh, I would have preferred it if it was just on Zoom. And then you say that, but then when you watch it and the Wi-Fi cuts out and it's just not quite secure enough. So the way that we ended up doing it, and I think out of lockdown, yes, Al would go to one house, I would go to another. I would monitor it like we did with Lesley, so I'm able to hear it, and I was able to see. Is that right, Al? Was I able to see a bit of Lesley on that one?
Well, you could have done, I think, if you'd have been on the Zoom.
But she
just chose to listen.
I think I was able to see it, but she was playing obviously to her camera. I was able to see it just off.
Yeah.
You know, I think all of those things, you know, in the end, we were like, actually, the best way to do it is have the laptop set up and have the camera as close to the laptop as possible. Some people were putting it to the side, but actually it does work. Then at least you've got that person in the vicinity. There's just so many things that, you do it again. You go,
with Lesley like that. I had my camera, but I had the lens just above her laptop, right in line. So she did have Kirsty there, you know, just out of her, just below her eye line, which I guess helped as well. I imagine Kirsty had a similar thing, didn't she?
Exactly the same, my end. Yeah. So I think those things we would definitely do. Take lights, just light it a bit better, because actually when you come to watch it, once it's in the boxes and it looks like Zoom, you feel it is just Zoom and you get it. But of course you want to elevate the production levels and have mics, and it just sounds fabulous. And Al's done a great job. Actually, Al came over to set up the shot with my camera for Kirsty, so because he didn't trust me to do it, which is fair enough.
It's a smart move. It's a smart move.
It's a smart move, but it does look great. It might not be quite as good as his camera, but it does look great.
It was very good, and we've obviously gone through all that process. You've filmed it, we've edited it, Al's edited it, and you know we've gone through that, put it out on social media, and then to get the response that we've gotten to this series, and I know especially in the last couple of weeks, has been really touching. And how has that been for you, having your friends, but also strangers on social media and Facebook and all these sorts of things reaching out to you just to take a second of their day to say, this was really good, thank you for doing this?
I can answer that. I think I said it sort of early on, that just having people that you don't know get in touch with you on Instagram, as I did yesterday, and I sent that to our group WhatsApp, and you know that's really special. It really is. And as I said to you guys, that actually means more than anything. If it's really connected with somebody. And you don't know. You put stuff out there and you think, well, I like this. I remember when I first sent Masking the Truth to Al. I think he was sat in Greece, actually. Yeah. And Al came straight back and said he loved it and could see it. And I think, yes, it had edits after that. And then we added that, a really lovely ending. That one of the things...
It originally ended, didn't it, with her calling for her husband and daughter just breaking down the screen, and that was that. And then you thought it'd be good idea to have her come back.
Well, I think that's the thing with them, and you learn about the structure when you write. I wrote, and I've had things in not in production, but in development with production companies where very definitely within a sitcom at page 13 there's going to be an ad break if you're doing it on ITV, and there's various things that you have to put in at various times, and there is such a structure to it. This was me learning the structure on the fly and going, actually, starting point was the beginning of it, and going, actually, it's lovely when there's a lift to some hope. We're in lockdown, but we're going, and there's a hopeful end. There's something. And all of them have that resolution, apart from No Illusions, I think, because it gets dumped. But, and that's where I think they work best, is that you just end and you've just had a little snapshot of these people's lives for 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes. And then there's that little lift. And that was the change with Masking, just to make sure we had.
I think we should actually go back to the very, very beginning, when you had this idea and you said, I've written a theme tune, and you sent me a little demo of it. I went, oh, that's good. Well, there's only one person who can sing that,
Well, no, actually, if we go even further back, I went, can we use, I think I spoke to you, Tom, I need a song a bit like a James Bay type song.
Yeah.
And I need something like, oh, you can't use it on YouTube, you haven't got the copyright. And I went, I'll write something. So I sort of wrote something quite quickly, actually. And then, yes, we were very lucky that Patrick Smith agreed to sing it for us. And
But he was in lockdown in Ireland.
Yeah.
And he bought himself a mic and an interface. So he had a little studio set up there.
Amazing.
You recorded the piano part and sent it over. And there was a bit of to and froing with tempo and feel and stuff like that. But once we sort of settled on it...
me getting it wrong, I think, wasn't
it? And then, and then Paddy, he's just such an incredible voice. I think that's a really great, it's one of my favorite songs of yours, actually. And then so when these things, the first one we put together, it's like, well, how do we fit this song? How do we fit this song into the episode. And then it sort of started, and then we kind of, of course, these people had shot little moments of before the Zoom, if you like, little moments of going into the kitchen, getting.
We'd asked them to, hadn't we? We'd asked them to, yeah.
So we had that stuff in case we needed it, and then it's sort of the formula was born of having the song start, titles into first a little bit, introducing the characters. So then once the song ends, we're into the scene, and then that became the sort of formula for that, and that's worked very well throughout.
And the only one that doesn't use that is No Illusions.
Yeah, of course, it doesn't. That's the only one with that song. And then we had a different thing, really, because the scene started with Masking the Truth. The scene started from the beginning of the title sequence, and we were able to fit the title sequence into that whole opening section.
It works very well.
It worked really well as well.
Yeah, it works fantastically. And Mark, of course, you composed the suites that play underneath a lot of the scenes as well, which of course is a man of many talents. It could have been so different though, because when you first came out with this song, The Space Between, which is the theme for the series, of course, that's what we thought we were going to call it.
We were going to call the whole
I can recall being sat there and doing all the promo. I've done all the graphics for this great series. And then another series, another musical theatre thing called The Space Between comes out.
Was it David Hunter? Is his name?
Yeah, David Hunter. Yeah.
So David put out a piece, and of course these are the things you don't know in lockdown. People have been creative. I've seen John Robbins has written a musical. People have been so creative in lockdown. And so this thing popped up called The Space Between. I'd just written a song called The Space Between, which I'd agonized over the title of, and I thought, this is what the project's going to be called. No, it's not. But actually, I like Distanced. It's become Distanced, and that's what it is now.
It's been really great. It's for a lot of people, the cast, ourselves, our audience. We're over 4,000 views as we sit here today in total for the series, which is brilliant. Everybody has really enjoyed it. And I personally want to know, and I'm sure everybody watching this up here on YouTube will want to know, is what's next?
That's a very good question. Well, I have written a couple of new scenes. And there were initially, when we did this, there were 9 scenes originally written, and we used 6. And one of them, and I will say and it was Monique Young was in this scene, and she's fabulous. She's in the Mary Poppins company, and it was one of those pieces that I really loved. But when we're talking about tone and having a resolution and having an up feel and an up ending, this was quite a depressing piece. So I've gone back, revisited that, because I do want to include that at some point somehow. And then I have actually written a second part to Unsaid. So I don't know if we can get Joe and SJ back. That will be in talks with.
It's too expensive now. That's it.
It'll be too expensive. So I don't know. I mean, yes, Al and I will definitely do something again. It's been a glorious experience. We've probably got a short film in us. I think we're going to enter a couple of these pieces into short film competitions. We've been, asked to do that. We've had a massive response to Masking the Truth. There is a thought that I might develop that further into a 6-part series with those 2 characters, because there are other characters mentioned in that 10-minute piece: Dawn, Maggie, the neighbour, and Gary, the brother, which just could all take this story further. There's 2 ways of looking at it. You could say this is perfect and it's in its perfect form as it is right now. But actually, there is always somewhere else for characters to go and to breathe new life into them. So, yeah, watch this space. I think, watch the space between. No, I'd love to do some more work in this forum, because I've really, really enjoyed it. And, hopefully Al will as well.
Yeah, definitely.
If you'll have me.
Oh, yeah. It's funny, everything, all the trailers and the promos that Tom has done, and every single episode, apart from No Illusion, starts with that piano figure, which is which is just starting. It's sort of a bit like now I hear that ding ding ding, and I go, here we go again.
Here we go. Yeah.
But I love
I think maybe other people are thinking that as well. Oh God, here it is again. But
I know my wife probably is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that again. Put your headphones on. She often shouts that down to me. Yeah.
Bloody song.
You feel a bit like Pavlov's dog, don't you? When it comes on, you're like, it's distant. Where is it? Where is it?
Where is it? I was going to say, when you said about 4,000 views, that probably doesn't sound like a lot when some things get, 20,000 or whatever, in this kind of viral world. But for a piece that actually is asking you to sit down for 10 minutes and watch it, I think that we've got to put that into perspective. We are asking attention from our audience a lot longer than the disposable world that we live in. A lot of things are like under 2 minutes, 1 minute, watch something a bit fun, bit camp, bit silly. And I love it too. And you kind of like it and watch it. But with this, you've really got to watch it and actually spend some time with it. And that's why some of the viewing figures go up at night time, I've noticed, when people have time to actually go, I'm going to dedicate a bit of time to this and actually watch it. So I think that 4,000 actually, is incredible that many people have sort of resonated with it and watched it.
Also, we tried to work out who our audience is as well.
Yes.
No, do you? You put it out there to everyone. You see how many views each one gets and all that kind of thing. And we just don't know, we don't know whether it's more of a Facebook demographic or an Instagram demographic or Twitter. It's like chucking it out there and seeing what the response is like.
Well, what I can tell you is that our audience is so broad because I have, access to all the analytics and stuff, and you can see where people are coming from, and that it is touching people of all ages. It is really getting through to a lot of people. And I think that speaks volumes in that somebody that's maybe 21, fresh out of drama school, really into this can like it. And then, people like my mum, our parents who are, in their 60s and 70s who still resonate with it as well. Like there's such a broad spectrum for all of these scenes, and there's a bit of something for everybody.
Which is good, yeah. I mean, I think something I've realised with that final piece, and I have to thank my mother-in-law who said you should do a piece with someone a bit older, because a lot of them were kind of 40s and younger, and she said, what about a piece with someone my age? And that was where Masking the Truth came from. So that actually wasn't written at all. There was no thought to do Masking the Truth. It just came out of a conversation, and sometimes that's all that's needed when you just go, oh, actually, this is the journey. It's probably the one that's resonated with people, the most, which is great, and I think there might be a life for that elsewhere. I can't talk too much about that at the moment, but I've certainly had a lot of interest in it. So it'd be lovely to be able to use it elsewhere.
Well, gents, it's been an absolute pleasure doing this whole series with you and sitting down with you as well today. Don't forget, everybody, you can follow us on social media at Distant Scenes, because as Mark said, there may be 1 or 2 updates coming up in the future. In the meantime, make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you soon.